The miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 people, this is a miracle that all four Gospels report about. Each Gospel writer has a little bit of a different version of it, but today we are reading from the Gospel of Matthew. And there's a behavior here that the apostles of Jesus demonstrate that I surely identified with it. I'm going to tell you what's my behavior first and then go and tell you about what the apostles did. When we have Salt and Light gatherings here on Friday evenings with a large number of youth and teenagers, and we always say that the meeting starts somewhere between 6:30 and 7 o'clock, and it ends promptly at 9 o'clock. It never ends at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is when the parents start coming to pick up their children, and that's where the gathering of the parents start. By 9:15 or 9:30, I am the one who starts turning the lights off, giving them a subtle message that it's time to go home. So today in the gospel we read that after spending a long day with the large crowd, the disciples of Jesus went to him and said, "It's getting late. Send these people away because we are in a remote place and everyone is hungry. Time to go. Turn off the lights." But the response of Jesus is radically different. He says, "You give them something to eat." And the disciples start complaining about everything that they don't have. How can we possibly feed a large crowd like this, 5,000 men? If you add the women and the children, you can double or triple those numbers. But upon inquiring, they discover that they have little something. They have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. And when Jesus blesses, the bread is multiplied. And everyone eats and everyone is satisfied. And there are 12 large baskets of leftovers. Very powerful miracle because Jesus shows so many signs as he performs this miracle. Today I want to start with the most subtle sign. He orders the disciples to have the people to sit down on the grass. So when I was a new preacher, a new derhair, reading this part I would say, "Oh, this is nice. They were having a picnic, sitting down on the grass with some freshly multiplied bagels and bread and fish. This must be really, really nice." But when I started learning a bit more about the biblical theology, I started realizing that those small details in the narrative, they matter a lot. So Jesus orders the crowd to sit on the green grass. And with that simple gesture, he is actually fulfilling a biblical imagery, an image that my assumption is most of you are very familiar with. Psalm 23, what does it say? "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me towards green pastures." The green pastures, my brothers and sisters, is being fulfilled here. Jesus is telling them, "Go and sit on the green grass, and I will feed you." The bread, powerful presence in the entire Bible, both Old Testament and New Testament. I will take only 2 examples from the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, when people were in the desert wandering for 40 years, they complained. They complained to Moses and said, "Why did you bring us to the desert? Our life was really good in Egypt. We never went hungry. There was a lot of food there." And when Moses presented this complaint to God, God told Moses that you will give them the bread. And we know that manna came from heaven. They would gather the manna every day, and that would nurture them. It would sustain them. It was given to them daily. And the days that they tried to hoard the manna and save it for the following day because they could not trust God, hoarding the manna didn't work. It went bad. They had to learn that they had to rely on God for sustenance. Another image that is in the Old Testament, again, is after constructing the temple. They had this special furniture. It was called the table of presentation. Fresh baked bread was supposed to be there every day. And imagine walking into a place, walking into a house where someone is baking fresh bread. How inviting is that? Just think about the smell of that fresh bread. That is really inviting. When someone bakes something fresh only for you, that is a sign of respect. That is a sign of friendship. With bread, God is telling us, I want to break bread with you. I want to be your friend. Look at it this way. In Armenian, when we say Enger, which means friend, it's a word that says ant ger, heda udel, miasin udel, eating together. That's a friend. In Latin, companion, I don't know Latin, but I know a few words here and there. Companion, con panino, someone with whom you share the bread. God is coming to us and offering his friendship. God wants to reconcile with us. And today, in this miracle, Jesus takes that idea and he elevates it to a whole new level. He multiplies the bread and he gives that bread to the people who are deprived, who are marginalized. But what's more important here is that in the Gospel of John, after performing this miracle, my brothers and sisters, Jesus makes a statement. And that statement is the following. He says, I am the bread of life. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. Jesus not only brings the message of God saying that I want to reconcile with you, I want to be your friend, but Jesus comes as our sustenance. He teaches us to ask for that bread daily, because only Jesus can sustain us. In order to make bread, my brothers and sisters, no, I will not give you a recipe now, but in order to make bread, you know that you have to crush the grain. Basically, in order for us to eat anything, whatever we're eating, that thing must die so that we can get sustenance, so that we can get nutrition. Same thing with the bread. You have to crush the grain so that we can eat. And Jesus comes and he presents himself as the broken bread. He comes to us and he says, I will die so that you can live. He gives his life for our salvation. Today, when we read this miracle, my brothers and sisters, we learn that in order for us to satisfy our hunger, we need to go to God. Because nothing else and no one else can satisfy our hunger. It's very simple. If you're hungry, you go to God, and God satisfies your hunger. But the problem is that we don't do that. We realize that we are hungry, and we feed ourselves with something else. We feed ourselves with something other than God. And that thing makes us feel satisfied for a while, and there's no nutrition. There's no sustenance. It's like that childhood example when your parents have prepared a meal for you and the meal is about to be ready to be eaten. You go and you open the fridge and you find some lousy snack and you start eating that snack. And your parents tell you, don't eat that, that will spoil your appetite. You will not be able to eat the food. I guess that's what we do. God is the real food, but then we go and we try to feed ourselves with lousy snacks. Snacks that not only have zero nutritional values, but snacks that make us sick. That's what we do as human beings. Today we have an invitation to go to Jesus and to tell him that everything that I've been trying to use to satisfy my hunger has been working against me, is controlling me, is making my life meaningless and useless. You are the only one who can feed me, and when I'm with you, I know that I can be alive. And it feels good to be alive, my brothers and sisters. Jesus fed 5,000 people. He's ready to feed you.